I am not surprised about the outcome of the Rangers game. Let's talk about what the Blues did that I liked and what they did that I didn't like.
Hey, this is Brayden Chen.
Subscribe to Locked On Blues.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Blues. I'm your host of Locked On Blues, Haley Taylor Simon, talking to you all things about our St. Louis Blues here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm not surprised by the outcome of the Rangers game, as yet the Blues fell once again in overtime. On the road again to the Sunshine State, the Blues go. And of course, my favorite Fridays segment and my only Fridays segment, Are We Feeling Blue? Was this a good week or was this a bad week for the St. Louis Blues? We have a lot to talk about on today's episode of Locked On Blues. But before I do so, I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I hope everybody is having a good Friday, December 19th, as we're inching our way towards Christmas. And the Blues are still looking for that overtime type of miracle after falling to the New York Rangers 2-1. And again, I want to remind you that this is a Blues team that has struggled immensely when it comes to overtime. And it's not a surprise for me. It's not, because at this point, it's so expected when the Blues go to overtime that they're not going to win. But again, I feel as if you can't make those excuses. Okay? Because let's keep it 100 and let's keep it real, because I do find this to be very interesting. But the Blues are 0-8 when it comes to overtime, which is really bad and, in my opinion, also pathetic. I think that, when it comes to the Blues and getting a record to go there, they do need to lose a lot more. And unfortunately, that has happened to other teams in the NHL. But, at the same time, this losing streak, it's really bad. You have the Pittsburgh Penguins, who are 1-9 when it comes to overtime, which, again, it's not good, but at least they were able to find one win. It makes the Blues situation worse just because they have yet to find that one win. And yeah, I guess it is embarrassing, right? While they do pick up that point, and that point is crucial, 100%, it's still very, very embarrassing. And I just think whenever a game goes to overtime, like last night, my first reaction was, yeah, they're not winning. Just because I'm so used to how the Blues perform in overtime. And as I mentioned in yesterday's episode, sometimes it can be a mental thing. So that was the main takeaway that I did not like from the game, was the performance in overtime. And I said we have stuff to digest about the game last night. And absolutely, but again, I just want to bring up that JT Miller OT goal that he scored against Binnington last night. It's so unfortunate, but again, it was expected. Now, the really good news that I will say is that we saw something from one of our new Blues, and Jonathan Bergen. He was able to score his first goal being a Blue with an assist from Dvorsky, giving the Blues a 1-0 lead late in the first frame. And then, unfortunately, on the power play, New York was able to tie it up in the second period. And what I will say is this. I think that this was relatively a cleaner game. I know in the second frame, we did see an amount of penalties that would have maybe balanced out the whole contest if it was spread throughout, but there definitely was a lot in the second frame. But overall, it was a relatively clean game. What it came down to, it's very simple. It's the lack of offensive pressure that the Blues put on. And I think that, again, when you're a Blues team right now who is struggling tremendously, you do need to step up the contest a little bit better, I should say, not good, better than most people would. But again, what I will say though is that I don't know, like the Blues, there's something about them right now that shows me a little bit more fire. The Blues were able to outshoot the Rangers 11-4 in the final frame, so they were showing fight. I will give the Blues that. They were showing fight. But again, it wasn't enough to get the job done. And that's what makes me a little bit kind of nervous, just because, I mean, it was such a low scoring contest, too. So it wasn't like this was a game where, it was 3-3 heading to overtime. No, this was a 1-1 game heading to overtime. So that was my biggest takeaway, that in a low scoring game like this, you need to find ways to get the puck in the back of the net. And that's why I think guys like a Robert Thomas needs to just shoot the puck, right? I feel like this is a team where you kind of see them not explode off the bat, right? And I feel like, again, Jordan Binnington in the first period especially had a fantastic showing in net. I think he actually displayed that he is back, so to say. And while the Blues didn't win in the contest, I think that they won in a sense that you should now feel more confident about what Binnington's able to do and what he's been able to do this whole entire time. It's actually very unfortunate what happened with the Blues, just because this is a team that has a lot of talent, but that hasn't been able to be displayed into its full effect just due to the inconsistencies that we've been seeing. So while the outcome isn't surprising, you have to think, okay, well, what was the good? The good was that we saw Jordan Binnington look decent in net again. Okay, the Rangers put a lot of pressure on him right away, and he was able to handle it. We saw a fight from this team in the third period. And while I did talk about certain players needing to shoot the puck more instead of the passing game, at least it displayed to me a level of hunger, a level of motivation. And we don't see that energy just die down. A lot of times when it comes to the third period, you see the guys, they're tired. And this is inevitable. This is not just the Blues. This is any single hockey team in the NHL. And if you think back, and I was actually reflecting on this today when I was doing my show prep, a lot of times in the third period, the Blues looked really lackadaisical and they didn't look like they were treading in the right direction. So I actually think, despite the outcome of the contest, this was a really good sign heading in the right direction. If you're listening, I want to apologize, by the way. If you hear any sounds of wind, it is very windy where I'm at, and I cannot find a place in my house for it to be quiet enough, so I do apologize. But continuing on, though, I think that the big takeaway from last night's game was the Blues' fight to keep at least that 1 point. Now, overtime, what can they do differently? I think in overtime, you just have to go for it. It's a lot of passing. It's a lot of babysitting the puck. I think that this is a team where you just need to take the puck and explode with it. And that would be my biggest critique, is that they don't explode. They wait. It's weird. I'm not a fan of it. However, I do understand in a sense that they're trying to be cautious, and I can respect that, but it's not working. Going 0-8 in OT this season, it's not a good look. It's not going to suddenly change if you don't switch up the approach. So that is the one critique I have, but I also am understanding that there are new guys getting used to this system. It's a really interesting team because of all the injuries and all the different roster changes. So I can be sympathetic towards that, but at the same time, if I were to give you my honest critique, that would be it. The Blues, they hit the road, and we are going to talk about the Sunshine State. But before I do so, I want to talk to you about my friends over at Gametime. The World Cup is coming back to North America for the first time since 1994. And with 48 teams, for the first time ever, it's going to be massive. But let's be honest, getting tickets is usually the hardest part. That's why the Gametime app is clutch, finally giving fans a real advantage when it comes to snagging seats. With Gametime, you can track price drops in real time, get alerts when great seats open, and buy tickets the moment they hit the app. It puts the power back in your hands, and it makes going to the World Cup realistic instead of impossible. What you need to do is that you need to pick a game that you feel like it's going to be the game. So when it comes to the World Cup, listen, I'm a bandwagon, but I'm like a Manchester United. That is the team that I would go to, okay? And what the beautiful thing about Gametime too is that while you do pick the game, you can allow Gametime to give you the best seats because they have features where they show you the best seats with the best prices. So you can just leave it all up to Gametime to show you where you should be sitting. And the best part is that all the fees are up front. So take the guesswork out of buying World Cup tickets and every match, concert, or event with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the app, make an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off Gametime. The Blues are on the road again. After having the homestand that, in my opinion, was actually somewhat successful, they do find themselves back on the road. And just to give you all a reminder that this was a homestand where you had the Blackhawks, which you beat. You had the Predators, which you lost to. You had the Jets, which you won. And then you had the Rangers, which you lost. So in my opinion, for the Blues, that is actually very successful because we see a lot of L's with how they're doing in the standings. And right now, the Blues are looking for all the wins possible because they are playing two teams right now that, well, let me go put it to you in this sense. While some of these teams haven't been playing as well, and yes, I'm referring to those Florida Panthers who the Blues do have tomorrow, they are still the defending Cup champions. And they're a team that struggled early on. Now they're on a 3-game win streak right now, which is something that I think the Blues should be a little bit concerned about just due to the fact that this is a team that has been to the Cup numerous times already, back-to-back champions. So, again, a team that I would be a little bit concerned about. And right above them on a 3-game losing streak is the Lightning in the standings. So, again, both of these teams right now who are very similar teams but also very different teams. And I hate to say it, but anytime you're playing a team like the Panthers or the Lightning, because again, don't forget bubble hockey, the Lightning had a lot of success then, you really need to bring your A game because this is not going to be an easy road trip. I mean, whenever you have Paul Maurice behind the bench, you're going to see nothing short of excellent coaching. And the Panthers, they're actually playing the Canes tonight, and the Canes are up right now with an early 1-0 lead. But at the same time, this is a team where you really need to just keep in mind defending Cup champions. And I also want to remind you of some of the players that they do have on this team because while they are facing a lot of injury, they still have Sam Reinhart, they still have Carter Verhaeghe, Sam Bennett, they have Brad Marchand, who, yes, used to be with Boston. You have Evan Rodriguez, you have Gustav Forsling, Aaron Ekblad, Seth Jones, Jeff Petrie, Sergei Bobrovsky, and let me tell you, he's good in net too. But they are missing like Matthew Tkachuk, and I know that's like the biggest injury when it comes to the Panthers, but that does make a big difference, all things aside, just because this is a team that right now has been on a bit of a hot streak. And it is a little bit interesting in the sense that, you know, you have the Panthers who have won, by the way, 6 of their last 7 home games, mind you. And while I do understand that this is also a team that has found some success on the road, I mean, when a team is hot at home, kind of hard to break that sometimes. So that is why I feel like it's going to be more of a difficult game against the Panthers. But besides the Panthers, there is also the Tampa Bay Lightning, who the Blues will face on the 22nd. I believe that is Sunday. Maybe it is Monday. You know what? It's Monday, but we'll still talk about it just for fun. And the Lightning are a really interesting team right now. And they have such a weird website, too. I was doing my research earlier today, and I had one of the links to their website. It's a very odd website. But anywho, I do want to talk a little bit about the lines and some of the players that Tampa has, just because I find like this team to actually be, I don't want to say better, but I feel like whenever you have Braden Point, that is a player that you need to be a little bit aware of, right? You also have Nick Paul, who is another player that actually has been fine. But you don't have like those veteran players on this team. I mean, Darian Radish, there's not a lot of players that you can truly declare as veteran type of players. I mean, whenever you have Andre Vavlasky, it's always these like Vavlasky. And then Jonas Janssen, it's always the hardest name. It's difficult. But I need to remind you that they're also missing some of their veteran players like Victor Hedman, Brandon Hagel, Nitika Kucherov. I mean, that's not small. So while both of these teams are on paper, when they're fully healthy, super loaded and super talented, they're also missing a lot of what makes their roster so unique. And that is having those core players. But the Blues also, and it's interesting because the Blues are also making moves, kind of. I mean, in a sense. Like when I say moves, I say this very lightly, and I say this to be as kind as possible, but they send Matt back down to Springfield. No surprise on that one. I mean, he appeared in the 5 games during his recall with the Blues, scoring 1 goal. But you have to kind of maybe question what's next for the Blues. And again, I think Otto, he actually played a really good game, so I was happy with him. And you know what? Otto Stenberg is somebody that I have talked about immensely during the summer, especially about his potential. And I actually think he fits into this team very well. So I was happy about that. But there are rumors still going around when it comes to the Blues, especially when it comes to trades. And right now, again, the biggest kind of speculations are from Brayden Schenn and Jordan Binnington. And Lou Korak from the Hockey News reported that Blues general manager Doug Armstrong addressed the possibility of shopping some of his veterans if the club didn't soon reverse its fortunes. He's acknowledged that he has done it before, and noting trades of O'Reilly and Vladdy. So again, it's not like Dougie A is shutting down the rumors. It seems like there might be some conversations happening, and maybe some decisions are being finalized behind the scenes. But I would not be surprised if we saw a Brayden Schenn get traded. More so than Jordan Binnington. I think that Binnington would be the least likely of the two, in my opinion. But again, you never know when it comes to this Blues team of what's going to actually happen. So, as I stated, there is a lot going on with the Blues right now behind the scenes. But I want to talk to you about my friends at FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, and every highlight moment. One thing that I love about FanDuel is player props. I personally love using the player props feature, and especially when it comes to rushing yards. Yes, the rushing yards. I am huge on that. And I actually take Saquon Barkley under just because he hasn't been performing as well. But one of the games that I am most excited about, and this might seem a little weird to most of you knowing my fan base and the team that I enjoy, but I think the most interesting game in this upcoming week is going to be the 49ers and the Colts. I actually feel pretty good about the Colts, and call me crazy, I think they actually might win the whole thing. So again, you can use all of your betting, whether it's spreads, player props, money line, and so much more at FanDuel. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. And it's my favorite Friday segment and my only Friday segment and the best Friday segment. Are we feeling blue? Was this a good week or was this a bad week for our St. Louis Blues? And I have to tell you, this was an okay week. I know, shocking. Usually I say bad, but this was an okay week, and I'm going to tell you why. Despite the Blues still being the Blues right now and not playing the best type of hockey, they have been playing better. And I say that very loosely, but they have been playing better. On Monday, they did have an ugly 5-2 loss to the Nashville Predators, which was not good. However, they were able to defeat those Winnipeg Jets 1-0 on home ice, wearing their OG home sweaters. And last night, they were able to pick up 1 point in the 2-1 Rangers win, Blues loss. And most importantly, we have Otto Stenberg, who was called up. And in my opinion, I was really excited about that news. I thought it was a little bit too soon. However, I was still excited. And then obviously Jonathan Bergen, who is also somebody that the Blues acquired and claimed off of waivers. So in my opinion, I would say this was an okay week. Now, another thing of bad news happened, which was Dylan Holloway. As Dylan Holloway will now be out for at least 6 weeks before he is reevaluated. And that, my friends, is not good because I feel like Holloway being out last year when we got really close to the playoffs was such a disadvantage for us. And it did not help this Blues team one bit not having Dylan Holloway. So I do hope that he does have a speedy recovery. Remember last season, actually, when Robert Thomas was injured and he was able to recover kind of sooner. I think it was 4 weeks rather than 6 weeks. Obviously, that's what you want. But at the same time, I don't want Dylan to be more hurt than he is. So it's not a good situation for any of us. But again, you just have to ask yourself this one important question. What is the goal for the 2025-26 Blues? Is it you want to see them go to the playoffs? Is it you want to see them get a good draft pick? What is the goal that you personally have when it comes to this team this season? Is it clearing up more cap space? I am genuinely curious about this just because I feel like there's so many different types of answers that would be appropriate in a situation like this with a team that has been struggling throughout the entirety of the season. You know, I speak to a lot of people that are season ticket holders or people that, travel to games, and I sympathize because it's very frustrating right now to watch this team. But the one thing that I love about our fan base is how much we truly do care about the Blues, despite everything that negatively might happen with the Blues. That is why I am saying what I'm going to say now. Despite the Blues playing some bad hockey, it's not too late for them to turn things around. There is still hope. Now, do I think that hope is realistic? No. Like, and the reason why I say that right now is I am a big numbers person, and we talk about this a lot on this podcast. How I like to look at numbers and how I like to evaluate things, right? And one of the things that I evaluate is the playoffs. Now, if the Blues wanted to get a wild card spot, they could. They're only 3 points back from a wild card spot, believe it or not. Having the second wild card spot in the West is San Jose with 37 points, having a 17-15-3 record. The Mammoth inching their way up with 37 points, but having a 17-16-3 record. And then finally, the Blues with a 13-15-8 record with 34 points. I want to remind you that the Winnipeg Jets, who the Blues defeated, have 32 points and are behind the Blues. And I told you that Winnipeg was going to struggle this season. And I have to tell you, it does make me happy. The Blues also moved up in the standing when it comes to the Central. They are the 5th team in the Central. Behind the Blues are Winnipeg, Chicago, and Nashville. So again, I'm telling you, it's happening. And now the Blues are not the 3rd worst team. They're the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th worst team in the NHL. Improvements have been made for the Blues, and I could not be more happy about that. So that being said, there is going to be bonus episodes. Woo! Finally, right? I was away on vacation earlier this week. I have some episodes to make up for you. So we're going to have a lot of conversations about the games that take place this weekend. And you know what? Maybe we'll do some fun holiday episodes where I talk to you about some of the conversations that the players and I had when we spoke a few months ago. Today was a fun episode, and I could not do it without all of you. So make sure to hit that subscribe button to stay up to date with all of your latest Blues news and info. And I will talk to you relatively soon. And like always, let's go Blues.